When an army of zombies invades the Earth, Garfield and his friends gain superpowers and must use their new abilities to save the universe. Today we're going to recap the story of the movie, Garfield Pet Force, from 2009. On the outskirts of the planet Dorkon, Captain Vetvix and her men are sailing around the galaxy looking for something to loot. Unaware of the approaching danger, Emperor John is watching over his kingdom when Professor Wally arrives. Excited by his new discovery, the professor shows that he has managed to find a beautiful diamond known as the Koopman Crystal, the most powerful energy source in the universe. With this artifact, Wally finally has enough energy to power the molecular scrambler, his weapon that can mix molecules. Using the molecular scrambler, the professor manages to mix the molecules of objects and even that of a human and a dog, making the two share abilities. To make matters even better, the molecular scrambler is able to turn those hit into zombies who will do whatever the owner of the weapon commands. Thanks to all this power, the professor programmed the function to undo this mixture, allowing the dog to separate from the lawyer and return to its original body. Upon seeing the weapon's capacity, the Emperor says that the molecular scrambler is extremely dangerous and the professor promises that he will keep the object safe. With that settled, John says that his lineage is close to ending and that he needs to find a wife as soon as possible. As no one from Dorkon is interested in him, the Emperor says he will have to look for a wife on another planet. Just then, Vetvix arrives in Dorkon with her henchmen and walks to the Emperor's palace. As soon as he sees the woman, John is totally smitten and doesn't think twice before asking her to marry him, offering everything he has if she accepts. Seeing Wally guarding the molecular scrambler, Vetvix finds the proposal interesting and agrees to marry John, who asks the professor to perform the wedding. At the push of a button, the whole ceremony is ready and the professor performs the wedding, declaring John and Vetvix emperor and queen. During the kiss, the bride asks one of her henchmen to take her place and John unknowingly kisses a humanoid dog. Now that she is officially the queen, Vetvix asks for the keys to the kingdom and uses the object to unlock the molecular scrambler, saying that she only came to get the gun. Upon hearing her plans, the professor calls all the palace guards, but they are totally incompetent and one of them knocks himself out. Using the molecular scrambler, Vetvix merges the guests and all the castle guards, turning them into his private zombies. Desperate, the professor hides behind the stage and calls in the Pet Force, a group of 4 superheroes. Using Odious' super-powered tongue, Starlina's freezing vision and Abnormal's super speed, the Pet Force manages to defeat Vetvix's soldiers. With only the villain standing, the superhero Garzuka uses his gamma-ray hairballs to try to knock her out, but the woman manages to dodge and uses the molecular scrambler to turn the entire Pet Force into servants, except Garzuka. As the only remnant, the leader of the Pet Force manages to hit a hairball that causes the crystal to fall out of the molecular scrambler, allowing Garzuka to take the diamond. Now that Vetvix has no way of using the molecular scrambler, the professor takes Garzuka underground and explains that he has to take the crystal away. Using his computer, Wally tracks down the DNA of animals compatible with the Pet Force and prints out a photo of the candidates, delivering a case of compatibility serums to the feline Superman. The professor then tells him that he needs to gather the new Pet Force and says that the serum will be able to give powers to animals with compatible DNA, and that the red serum will turn everyone back to normal. Now that he has the coordinates of the candidates, Garzuka goes to his spaceship and takes off towards a new planet, leaving the professor behind to be captured by Vetvix. In the world of cartoons, Nermal finishes reading the Garzuka comic book and is very excited about the sequel. Unlike him, Garfield doesn't think anything of it and seems rather bored, only worrying about the point of the sausage in his hot dog. After lunch, John goes off to work in the studio and leaves Garfield assembling his hot dog in the backyard. On his way to work, Nermal asks John to stop at the newsstand and goes down to buy the new comic of Pet Force. While the gray cat buys the magazine, Garzuka approaches the interdimensional barrier at very high speed and opens the capsule of his spaceship, jumping out of the magazine into the cartoon world. Wanting to locate his new team, Garzuka shows the photo of the candidates to the owner of the newsstand and asks where they went, following the direction pointed out immediately afterwards. A few kilometers away, Nermal begins to read the story and realizes that he and his friends are inside the comics. As soon as he sees this, the gray cat suggests that he, Odie and Arlene are the people with the matching DNA and says that Garzuka must be after them. Wanting to know where the atomic pussycat is, Nermal turns the page and discovers that it is still blank, meaning that the story is still being written. At John's house, Garzuka knocks on the door and enters the place looking for the trio, but all he finds is his lazy version eating the hot dogs. When he sees Garfield, Garzuka tells him everything that happened on the planet Dorkon and says that he needs his help to save the universe, but the orange cat thinks it's a prank and starts pulling the skin off his face, thinking it's a mask. With no time to lose, Garzuka says that Vetvix will come after him and that now the world of cartoons is also in danger. Finally, Garzuka asks where the others have gone and says that the crystal will be safer with Garfield, handing it over to him and heading for the studio straight away. In the middle of the universe, Vetvix is looking for Garzuka's coordinates and finds someone with compatible DNA. Like the hero, she passes through the interdimensional barrier and ends up in the newsagents, which leaves the paperboy terrified. In the studio, Nirmal reads the magazine again and discovers that a new drawing has appeared before his eyes, that of Garzuka behind them. When the trio turns around, the superhero tells them that he has crossed the universe after them and asks for their help in fighting Vetvix by distributing the serum among the animals. Although Arlene is reluctant, Nirmal and Odie are more excited and take the drink without a second thought, leaving the cat with no choice but to join them. After ingesting the serum, none of them feel anything different and Garzuka comes to the conclusion that their metabolism is slower, suggesting that they should wait a little longer before acting. At John's house, Garfield finishes admiring the crystal and drops it in the chair's cup holder, closing his eyes to sunbathe. Suddenly, Vetvix's ship appears and begins to abduct the orange cat along with the chair. When she sees Garfield, the woman thinks he's Garzuka in disguise and asks for the molecular scrambler. As soon as he realizes what she wants, Garfield disguises himself and goes to the chair, hiding the crystal inside his glass of lemonade. Shortly after he does this, Vetvix approaches and asks once more about the crystal, promising that she will make him talk no matter what the cost. In an attempt to force him, the villain squeezes the orange cat as hard as she can, but he's a cartoon character and doesn't feel a thing even after being totally twisted. Tired, the villain decides to take a break to recover her energy and says she's going to drink the lemonade, asking her guard to get the glass. Before he drinks, Vetvix asks what he needs to do to get him to talk and Garfield replies that he just wants a sip of lemonade. Without thinking twice, Vetvix hands him the glass and the kitten puts the crystal in his mouth, but it's too big and he can't swallow it. Noticing that Garfield has something in his mouth, the woman suspects something is wrong and confirms her suspicions by closing the windows and turning off the lights in the aircraft, which makes the crystal in Garfield's mouth glow. Now that he knows where his energy source is, Vetvix orders his henchmen to open Garfield's mouth and retrieve the crystal, putting it back in the molecular scrambler. Now that the weapon is working again, Vetvix goes up to the cockpit and starts turning everyone she comes across into zombies. Excited, the woman approaches Garfield to humiliate him and asks her men to locate Garzuka, who is already at the studio with his new helpers. After more than an hour of rehearsing, Arlene says she's still not feeling anything and the superhero begins to suspect that the transformation isn't going to happen. While thinking about what to do, Garzuka hears something approaching and goes to the window to investigate, discovering that Vetvix is already on her way. Suddenly, the woman smashes through the studio wall with her ship and starts asking for the hero, who is hiding behind a concrete block. While the villain searches for him, Garzuka decides to stay hidden until the serum takes effect and lets the studio team get hit by the molecular scrambler. On the spaceship, one of the guards puts Garfield in a beach chair and starts watching the cameras with his colleagues. Taking advantage of their distraction, Professor Wally asks Garfield to take his monocle and put it in the window, but when he tries to do so, the cat ends up being caught by one of the guards. While the man is talking, Garfield takes the opportunity to put his monocle to the window and redirect the rays of light, burning the rope that binds the professor. Not knowing what to do with the cat, the guard takes it to the cabin where Vetvix asks to get rid of it. Without understanding what she's saying, the dog takes Garfield to the garbage chute and ejects him, making him fall exactly into the alley where Garzuka is. While the pumpkin-colored kitty explains what happened, Odie begins to transform and gains odious superlinguistic powers. In addition to him, Arlene also transforms into Starlina and gains the power to release freezing rays from her eyes. Eventually, Nirmal gets extremely fast and becomes Abnormal, the fastest cat in the universe. After testing their powers, the new pet force is ready to save the universe and begins planning how they will bring down Vetvix's ship. Thinking of a way to do this, Garzuka suggests going to the top of the tallest building and using the antenna as a harpoon. Before they can act, Vetvix takes her ship out of the studio and orders her zombies to capture the superheroes, making them chase Garzuka, who is hiding under a sign. While looking for her archenemy, the villain sees Garfield behind a dumpster and asks the guard why he's still alive, saying that the soldier was supposed to have eliminated the cat. Watching everything on camera, Eli realizes that Vetvix is about to shoot Garfield and activates one of the studio's suction turbines, pulling the cat to safety. Despite this, John manages to hold on to the dumpster and ends up being hit by the molecular scrambler, turning into one more of the villain's zombies. While the entire population of the city is transformed, the new pet force hides under a sign and tries to go unnoticed. But they are soon found and cornered by the zombies. With no options left, Garzuka begins to brute force his way through the buildings until he reaches the tower, passing through the revolving door and blocking the passage with all the furniture. Even so, the zombies manage to break the windows and the pet force has to run up the stairs. To save time, Starlina uses her freeze vision to knock down the zombies on the stairs, blocking the way for the others. At the studio, Eli starts looking for survivors and manages to find Wally, Bonita and Betty, who come together to think of a way to defeat Vetvix. Curious, Garfield asks if they can find out what's going on at the center and Eli replies that they can access the signal from the tower's cameras. On the computer, they see that the new pet force has been cornered before it reaches the antenna. Even using his gamma-ray hairballs, Garzuka can't eliminate all the zombies by himself and Garfield decides to help in the fight. Together, the survivors of the studio begin to plan what they are going to do while Arlene freezes the zombies. After using her powers for so long, the cat's eyes start to hurt and she loses her ability to freeze. To help, Odie uses his super tongue and Nermal his speed to knock out even more zombies, but soon they all get tired and lose their abilities too. Seeing this, Garzuka realizes that their bodies can't withstand so much power and says that he can't deal with so many zombies on his own. At that moment, Garfield and Wally arrive at the top of the building pretending to be the zombies and take advantage of their low intelligence to trick them, using a banner to impersonate Vetvix and order them to stop. While the army waits for new orders, Wally and Garfield deliver a tarpaulin for the pet force to hide under and take the opportunity to disguise themselves as Garzuka, putting on a ridiculous costume and taking the zombies away from the superheroes. On the ship, the rays of light finally burn Professor Wally's rope just as Vetvix spots her zombies. Thinking they're after the real Garzuka, the villain flies to the top of the tower and doesn't notice the real pet force in the antenna. Using his super strength, the cat throws the antenna at the ship and starts pulling the vehicle with the help of the other superheroes. On the streets, Wally and Garfield continue to lead the zombies into the studio and trap them all in a hole under the stage. Now that the zombies are out of circulation, the pet force pulls Vetvix's ship, which lands on top of the building. Even so, the villain doesn't give up and gets out of the vehicle with the molecular scrambler. Before Vetvix can fire, Nermal runs around her to distract her and Garzuka hits her with a gamma-ray hairball, causing the villain to drop the weapon. During the crash, the super mixing mode is accidentally activated and the molecular scrambler becomes even more powerful. Thanks to this, Vetvix is able to fuse all the pet force at once and turn them into his own zombies. On the ship, Professor Wally finally unties himself and removes Emperor John's ropes, stealing the ship from Vetvix. However, the villain is more concerned with discovering the abilities of her molecular scrambler and uses the super mix mode to merge the city's buildings, creating a monstrous scramble. Following its master's orders, the mountain of rubble sets off through the city, destroying everything in its path. In the studio, Garfield and the other survivors begin to think of a plan when Professor Wally and Emperor John arrive. Thinking that only he can stop Vetvix, Garfield asks for a ride and Professor Wally accepts, taking off and doing maneuvers in the air while dodging the scrambler's lightning bolts. With everything ready, the lasagna-loving cat in boots heads for the exit and ejects himself on top of the monster. As soon as he throws himself in, the creature grabs the wings of the ship, which break off, causing the vehicle to fall straight down, while Vetvix fights with the rubble Godzilla for destroying her means of transportation. Garfield appears and begins to provoke the villain, attracting the attention of the creature who tries to crush him. After falling through a roof, Garfield starts jumping from one building to another trying to save himself, but the ball of junk keeps chasing him. While trying to escape, the pussycat encounters the pet force, which begins to attack him. Even with his laziness, Garfield is a cat and therefore has excellent reflexes, managing to dodge Garzuka's hairballs and making the gamma-ray projectiles hit the monster's legs. With that, Garfield manages to make the creature stagger and finishes him off by wrapping Odie's super tongue around his leg. As the monster falls, Vetvix ends up releasing the molecular scrambler who falls into Garfield's hands, allowing him to tear the rubble monster apart. Now that he has control of the gun, the pussycat separates the pet force and runs into the studio where Vetvix is. When she sees Garfield, the woman tries to run and ends up being cornered by the employees, allowing the cat to shoot the scrambler at her. After being struck by the lightning, the woman is completely transformed and starts acting like a good person. With that done, Garfield asks Eli to open the hole in the stage and uses the molecular scrambler to get everyone back to normal, including his friends from the studio. Now that everyone is safe, Garzuka arrives with the new pet force and congratulates Garfield on his heroic act. Once everything is sorted out, the cat returns the molecular scrambler to Professor Wally, who promises to destroy the weapon once he's fixed things up in Dorkon. Now that everyone is safe, Emperor John begins to thank the new pet force when Vetvix runs up to him to apologize, suggesting that they resume their marriage. With that done, Garzuka says that there can only be one pet force in the universe and gives Garfield's friends the red serum to return to their original form, causing them to lose their powers. Finally, Garzuka says that everyone has been a real hero and thanks them for their help, returning to the planet Dorkon with a sense of accomplishment. Back on their world, John and Vetvix renew their wedding vows and finally kiss for the first time, setting off a huge Imperial firework display that can be seen from planet Earth. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.